when I saw my husband's name on that bank statement, attached to an account I never knew existed, my hands went cold. It wasn't the numbers that scared me, though there were plenty of zeros. It was the realization that this account had a life of its own, one I'd never been meant to see. I remember standing in our small home office, the hum of the ceiling fan filling the silence. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it echo in my ears. The folder had been tucked behind old tax files, dusty and sealed. I'd opened it only because the drawer jammed. Isn't it strange how life unravels on the smallest accidents? In that moment, I wasn't a wife. I was a stranger trespassing into my own marriage. And as I flipped through those pages, statements, transfers, receipts from someone named Marlena, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. But maybe I should start from the beginning. Before I knew what betrayal smelled like. My name is Clara. I'm 41 years old, and for 15 years, I thought I was married to a good man. Ethan was never flashy. He didn't buy me jewelry or whisk me away to surprise vacations, but he was steady, dependable, the kind of man who fixed the leaky sink at midnight and rubbed my feet after long days. We lived in a 2-story house on Willow Lane, modest, but filled with the kind of warmth that only grows from shared laughter and late-night talks. Our daughter, Ava, was 13, too tall for her own good, with Ethan's sharp green eyes and my stubborn streak. I worked as a part-time bookkeeper for a small firm downtown. Ethan ran a local hardware store his father left him. We weren't rich, but we had enough. Enough to pay the bills, to host little backyard barbecues, to dream about sending Ava to college one day. Most evenings, I'd make tea while Ethan watched the news. The scent of chamomile would drift through the living room, mixing with the faint smell of sawdust he always carried home from the store. It was the scent of comfort, familiarity. Our marriage wasn't perfect. He had a temper, quiet but sharp, the kind that cut without shouting. Sometimes he'd withdraw for days after an argument, claiming he needed space. I'd learned not to press too hard. We were both tired adults trying our best, or at least I was. Looking back now, there were signs. Late nights at inventory checks, his sudden insistence that we keep separate phones, the way he brushed off conversations about savings, claiming I worried too much. But at the time, I convinced myself it was normal. After all, marriage isn't built on suspicion. It's built on trust. And I trusted Ethan like the sun would rise. It started with a phone call. One evening, around 9, Ethan's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while he was out walking the dog. The screen lit up. Marlena, Supply Co. I thought nothing of it. Business contact, probably. But when it buzzed again, and again, my chest tightened. I don't know why. Maybe it was intuition. Or maybe the way her name sat on that screen. Too casual. Too familiar. When Ethan came back, I asked lightly, "Who's Marlena?" He froze, just for a second, but it was enough. Then he smiled too quickly. "Oh, she's new. Works with one of our suppliers. You'd like her. Tough negotiator." His answer was neat, rehearsed. I wanted to believe it. Still, later that night when he showered, I scrolled through his phone. I'd never done that before. My hands trembled as I unlocked it. He'd never changed his passcode, and that almost made it worse. There was nothing incriminating. No messages, no photos, no calls, like she'd been wiped clean from his digital world. And yet, her name lingered in my mind. A few days later, he mentioned a business trip, 3 days out of town for hardware expo meetings. I nodded, packed his favorite flannel shirt, and kissed him goodbye at the door. But when he returned, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. Dinner for 2 at a restaurant in our city, the same night he'd supposedly been away. When I asked about it, he laughed it off. Said he'd mixed up his jacket with a coworker's. The lie slid off his tongue so easily, it almost sounded true. Almost. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, counting the faint shadows of the fan blades turning. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong, but I still didn't know what. The truth came 2 months later, on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. Ethan had gone to work early. Ava was at school. I was organizing receipts for tax season when I noticed one envelope that didn't belong. Wellington Trust Bank, it read. We didn't have an account there. I opened it. Inside were statements, monthly summaries with Ethan's name, a balance that made my knees weaken. Over $180,000. Transfers every few weeks from a company I'd never heard of, Marlena and Kober's Holdings. It wasn't just a side account. It was an entire secret life. I sat there for a long time, staring at those numbers until they blurred. Then I started piecing together what I knew. The phone calls, the dinners, the late nights, the secrecy. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Some of the deposits had memos, consulting payment, equipment deal, retainer. But there was no consulting firm registered under Ethan's business license. And I knew enough bookkeeping to smell deceit. It wasn't just another woman. It was money, power, a betrayal built in spreadsheets and signatures. That night, when he came home, I looked at him differently. I studied the way he avoided my eyes, how his hand lingered on his phone as if guarding something sacred. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't feel married. I felt like a witness to my own life. I didn't confront him right away. I wanted proof, real proof. So over the next week, I copied the documents, took photos of every statement, and emailed them to myself. I contacted a friend, an accountant, under the guise of curiosity. Her words still ring in my ears. Clara, this looks like a shell company. He's hiding money. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine I didn't want, sat on the porch and listened to the crickets. The air smelled of cut grass and betrayal. When Ethan joined me, smiling like nothing was wrong, I knew I was staring at a stranger. And I also knew, if I didn't act soon, I'd lose everything. The confrontation came on a Sunday evening. The air was thick with humidity, the kind that made the curtains cling to the open windows. Ethan was sitting at the dining table, scrolling through his phone. Ava was at a friend's house, which was a mercy I didn't yet realize I'd need. I placed the folder, his folder, on the table between us. He looked up, half smiling. What's this? Something I found while cleaning, I said, keeping my tone steady. You might want to explain. He opened it casually. But the moment his eyes fell on the first page, his expression cracked. His lips parted slightly. The color drained from his face. Where did you get this? He asked, his voice low, almost dangerous. It doesn't matter where I got it, I said softly. What matters is that it exists. For a long moment, there was silence. The kind that presses against your chest and steals your breath. Finally, he said, Clara, it's not what you think. I almost laughed. It's not what you think, the anthem of the guilty. Then what is it, Ethan? I said, a mistake? A charity account you forgot to mention? Or maybe this Marlena just enjoys wiring you thousands of dollars for your charming personality. His jaw tightened. You went through my things. Yes, I said, meeting his eyes. And I found our life. The real one you've been living without me. He leaned back, sighing, rubbing his temples. You wouldn't understand. It's complicated. Try me. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. Marlena and I started a small investment deal years ago. I used her name because, well, she had connections. It was business, that's all. I stared at him. And that's why you kept it secret for years? Because it was business? He looked away. I didn't want to worry you. It was risky at first. Risky? Ethan, you've been moving money behind my back. You have an entire company with another woman. Do you hear yourself? He slammed his hand on the table. Don't make this bigger than it is. The sound echoed through the room like thunder. I flinched, not from fear, but from recognition. That was the sound of the man he truly was. I trusted you, I whispered, with everything, and you've been lying to me for years. His shoulders slumped. For a moment, I thought I saw guilt flicker in his eyes. But then it hardened again, replaced by defensiveness. You always wanted to control things, Clara. The bills, the schedules, the budget, everything. I needed something that was mine. Something in me broke then, not from what he said, but how easily he said it. As if betrayal could be justified by pride. I stood, feeling a strange calm wash over me. Then you can have it. You can have everything that's yours, because I'm done living in something that isn't real. He didn't stop me when I walked upstairs, didn't follow, didn't shout, just sat there in the silence while I packed a small bag. When I left that night, I didn't have a plan. I just had proof and pain. I spent the next few nights at my sister's apartment, pretending I was just taking a break. Ava stayed with Ethan. I didn't want to uproot her until I understood what I was dealing with. But every night I stared at those bank statements and felt the anger grow roots. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the years, the choices, the quiet deception that had woven itself into our daily life. I contacted a lawyer, quietly. A woman named Nadine, who'd handled family financial cases before. When I showed her the documents, she frowned. "Clara, this isn't just a secret account," she said. "It's fraud. If his business assets overlap with this company and your name is attached to any joint filings, you could be liable." My heart dropped. "You mean I could get in trouble for his lies?" She nodded grimly. "If he's using marital funds without disclosure, yes. But it also means you have leverage." That word stuck with me. Leverage. Nadine helped me quietly freeze one of our joint savings accounts and pull my portion into a separate one under my name. She also suggested I make copies of every relevant record, emails, receipts, texts. "Stay calm, stay invisible," she said. "Let him think you're broken. That's when he'll slip." And she was right. Within 2 weeks, Ethan started calling me again. His messages were full of half apologies and manipulations. "Can we talk? I didn't mean to hurt you." "You're overreacting, Clara. It's not what it looks like." Then came the guilt tripping. "Ava misses you. You're tearing the family apart." Every word chipped at my resolve, but I stayed firm. I'd spent too long bending to his moods. One night he showed up at my sister's apartment. I hadn't told him the address. He must have found it through Ava. He stood at the door, holding flowers. "I just want to talk," he said. I let him in. He looked tired, older somehow. "Clara," he began, "I made mistakes, okay? But I didn't cheat on you. I swear. Marlena's just a partner." "Then why the lies?" I asked quietly. "Why the secrecy?" he sighed. "Because you wouldn't understand how business works. I was trying to build something for us." "For us?" I almost laughed. "You mean the wife you left in the dark and the daughter who still thinks her dad's a hero?" His jaw clenched. "You're making this ugly." "It already is ugly," I said. "You just didn't want to see it." He looked around the room. The small couch, the folded laundry, the faint smell of my sister's lavender candles. "You really think you can just walk away?" he said. I already did. That was the moment I realized he didn't think I had the strength to leave. So I decided to prove him wrong. Over the next month, I met with Nadine weekly. We built a quiet case, documenting every false asset and hidden deposit. Ethan thought I was cooling off. He even started sending money to my personal account, pretending it was support. But each transfer only added to the evidence. Then came the discovery. Marlena wasn't just a name on the statements. She was his silent business partner and lover. Nadine found correspondence between them in the company filings. He'd been funneling profits from joint store income into her business for over 2 years. When I read those emails, I didn't cry. I felt free, because the worst thing he could do had already been done. And I was still standing. With Nadine's help, I used his own secret account to secure my future. We filed for legal separation, citing financial infidelity. The court approved a temporary hold on all joint assets pending review. Ethan was blindsided, furious. He showed up again one evening, pounding on my sister's door. "You had no right," he shouted. "That's my money, Clara." I looked him straight in the eye. "No, Ethan, that was our money, and you lost the right to call it yours the moment you hid it." He was shaking with anger. "You'll regret this," he said. But I didn't. Not for a second. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't the one apologizing. When he finally stormed off that night, I knew the war had begun. But I also knew something he didn't. I wasn't fighting for revenge. I was fighting for myself. And that, I've learned, is the most powerful kind of battle there is. If betrayal is a private wound, then justice is the slow unveiling of the scar. It didn't happen all at once. The first crack came when Ethan's business partner, Marlena, suddenly disappeared from town. Nadine told me quietly one morning over coffee. Her company registration was dissolved last week. The state froze their accounts. I didn't ask for details. I didn't have to. I knew Ethan's web of secrets was beginning to untangle itself. A few days later, word spread through the small-town business circle. Someone at the hardware store told me he'd been served papers from the bank. His employees whispered behind his back. Customers began to notice his temper. For years, Ethan had been the man people trusted with their home repairs and tools, the reliable local owner with a friendly smile. But now that same smile looked like a mask slipping. I didn't celebrate. Not outwardly. I still had to protect Ava. She was old enough to sense something was wrong, but too young to understand the depth of her father's deceit. I told her only that Mom and Dad are figuring things out. She didn't need to carry our mess. Still, one night she asked me, her voice barely above a whisper, "Mom, why does Dad look so sad lately? Did you make him mad?" I took a deep breath and said, "Sometimes, when grown-ups make bad choices, it makes everyone sad." "But that's not your fault, sweetheart," she nodded, but her eyes lingered on mine longer than they should have. Within weeks, everything came crashing down for Ethan. The bank launched a formal audit after Nadine's petition revealed multiple inconsistencies in his financial declarations. The court froze the remaining assets until full review. His credit accounts were temporarily suspended, and his reputation, once polished and respected, began to crumble. He called me one night. I almost didn't answer. "Clara," he said, voice low, broken. "They're shutting me down. The business, it's gone." I said nothing. "I don't know what to do," he continued. "You could fix this. You know accounting, you could talk to them. Tell them I didn't mean to hide it." The audacity almost made me laugh. "You didn't mean to?" I said quietly. "Ethan, you created an entire company to hide money. That's not a mistake. That's a decision." His breathing hitched. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said. "It just makes me free." Then I hung up. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without waking up to check if the door was locked. A few weeks later, I went to court for the first formal hearing. Ethan was there, sitting at the far end of the room, in a wrinkled suit, eyes downcast. I almost didn't recognize him. He looked small, defeated. Nadine leaned over to whisper, "We're going to win this, Clara. The documents you found, they sealed the case." I nodded, but my stomach turned. Winning didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. When the judge read out the findings, that Ethan had committed financial concealment under marital law, that I was entitled to restitution and asset division, I didn't smile. I just exhaled. After the hearing, as people filed out, Ethan caught up to me in the corridor. "Clara," he said, his voice cracking, "you've destroyed me." I turned to him, calm. "No, Ethan, you destroyed us. I just stopped pretending everything was fine." He looked like he wanted to argue, but his words fell apart before they reached his lips. There was nothing left to say. About the lawsuit? Apparently he was hiding money. I didn't indulge in gossip, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting, the way people pitied me, or worse, admired me for standing up. What they didn't see were the quiet mornings I spent sitting by the window, staring at the sunlight on the floor, wondering how long it would take for the anger to fade. Ava struggled too. Her father called occasionally, but she didn't know what to say to him. She'd hand me the phone, eyes unsure. Sometimes I'd answer. Sometimes I wouldn't. One night she asked me, "Do you still love him?" It caught me off guard. I thought about the man he used to be, the one who danced with me in the kitchen, who built our daughter's crib by hand, who once cried when we couldn't afford new tires and I told him it didn't matter. Then I thought about the man who lied, who built a life on deceit and called it independence. "I love who I thought he was," I told her softly. But sometimes the person we love isn't the same one we end up with. She nodded, her little face wise beyond her years. Then maybe it's okay to let go. Her words stayed with me. Months passed. The court finalized our divorce in the spring. I got a fair settlement. Not revenge money, but enough to rebuild. Enough to breathe again. I moved into a smaller home, not far from Ava's school. The first morning there, I made coffee in my own kitchen, sunlight spilling over the counter. It was quiet. Peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in years. Sometimes healing doesn't look like happiness. It looks like silence that no longer feels heavy. I started freelancing as a financial consultant for local small businesses. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman betrayed by secret accounts now helping others keep their finances honest. One afternoon, while sorting through client invoices, I came across a familiar name, Wellington Trust Bank. For a moment I froze. Then I smiled faintly. Life has a way of circling back, but this time I wasn't afraid. Ava was doing better too. She'd joined her school's art club and started talking about high school plans. When she smiled now, it reached her eyes, and as for Ethan, he sold the store. Last I heard, he moved 2 towns over, working under someone else's business. The man who once couldn't stand not being in control now answered to a boss. There's a strange comfort in that symmetry. One rainy evening, about a year after everything, Ethan called again. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Clara," he said, his voice tired, worn. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I was stupid. I lost everything that mattered." I stayed silent. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he continued. Sometimes I wish I could go back." I took a breath. "We all wish that, Ethan. But the truth is, some doors don't open twice." He didn't argue. Just said softly, "Take care of Ava," and hung up. I sat there for a long time, listening to the rain tapping the window. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. That's how healing comes, not with fireworks, but with quiet acceptance. Now, when I look back, I don't see the betrayal first. I see the moment I decided to choose myself. That's what the secret bank account gave me. Not wealth, but freedom. Freedom to walk away. Freedom to rebuild. Freedom to become someone who didn't need to be saved. Because sometimes, the money you discover isn't what saves you. It's the truth behind it. It's been 3 years now since the night I found that folder. Sometimes, when I open my filing cabinet and see neat rows of labeled envelopes, I think about that dusty drawer in our old home. The one that jammed. The one that changed everything. Back then, I thought that finding Ethan's secret account would destroy me, but it didn't. It stripped me down to the truth. Yes, but the truth, as painful as it was, became the foundation for the life I have now. There are mornings when I still wake up expecting to hear his footsteps downstairs. The sound of the kettle boiling, the smell of his coffee. Habit has a long memory, but then I remember that silence can be a kind of peace too. My home now is smaller, but it feels larger somehow, because every inch of it belongs to honesty. To me, Ava and I have built our own rhythm. We bake together on weekends. She's learned to make a lemon cake that fills the whole house with the smell of sugar and warmth. Sometimes we dance in the kitchen while it bakes, just like her father and I used to. But this time, the laughter doesn't hide anything. She's older now, more aware. I've never told her every detail about what happened, but I've told her the most important part. That when someone hides things from you, it's not your fault for trusting them. It's their fault for abusing that trust. She asked me once if I forgave her father. I told her forgiveness isn't something you give to make someone else feel better. It's something you give to yourself so you can stop carrying the weight. And maybe that's what I did. I forgave him. Not because he deserved it, but because I did. I think about women, people, really, who find themselves in my place. Who discover secrets they never asked for. Who stare at the truth in black and white and wonder how to breathe again. If that's you, I want you to know this. You are not crazy for trusting. You are not weak for believing. Love, real love, is built on faith. And when that faith is betrayed, the shame doesn't belong to you. I used to believe strength looked like holding everything together, smiling through the pain, pretending. Now I know strength sometimes looks like walking away quietly, signing your name on a document that ends what you once prayed would last forever, standing alone in a courtroom, heart racing, but steady. Strength isn't loud. It's steady. It's knowing when silence is your loudest answer. When I look back at Ethan now, I don't see the man who lied. I see the man who taught me how deeply I could endure, how capable I was of rebuilding. It's strange, isn't it? How the person who breaks you can also become the reason you finally become whole. Last month, I took Ava to the coast for her 15th birthday. We stood on the edge of the water, the wind tangling her hair, the sun dipping low behind the waves. She said, "Mom, do you ever wish things had turned out different?" I thought for a moment before answering. "I used to," I told her. "But if they had, I might still be pretending. I'd rather live honestly with less than live comfortably in a lie." She nodded, thoughtful, watching the tide roll in. "You're really brave," she said softly. I smiled. "No, sweetheart. I was scared every step of the way, but I did it anyway. That's all bravery is." She slipped her hand into mine, and we stood there until the waves reached our toes. Sometimes, I think healing looks like that. Two people standing on the shore of what was lost, and realizing they've survived the storm. There's one thing I've learned through all this. Secrets don't stay buried forever. The truth always finds a way to surface. Sometimes through a broken drawer, sometimes through a quiet hunch, sometimes through the tremor in someone's voice. But when it does, it won't destroy you. It will set you free. You just have to be brave enough to stop looking away. I found my husband's secret bank account. And yes, it shattered my world for a while. But that discovery became my beginning, not my end. I used that money to get a lawyer, to protect myself, to build a life rooted in honesty and self-respect. And though I never planned revenge, life has a way of balancing its own scales. Ethan lost the things he hid, and I found the things I'd lost. Myself, my peace, my voice. Now every time I look at my reflection, I see someone I trust. That's worth more than any bank account. Sometimes, life has a cruel way of showing us what love is not, before it shows us what love can be, and when it does, the choice becomes yours. Do you stay in the comfort of what's familiar, or do you step into the unknown and rebuild from truth? I chose the truth. It was colder at first, but it was real. So if you're listening right now, wondering what to do with the secret you've uncovered, I'll tell you this. You already know the answer. You've just been waiting for the strength to follow it. And that strength? It's already inside you. You just have to take the first step. Would you have done what I did? Would you have used his secret to save yourself? Or walked away quietly and left it behind? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading. And if you believe that no betrayal can destroy a woman who decides to rise, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Because sometimes, the hardest truths lead us to the most powerful beginnings.